I'm making this video to show how easy it is to grow gut-brain food. I'm not saying it is totally trivial, but anyone with a patio or veranda can grow their own gut-brain food if they understand a few basic principles. We are beginning to understand how important the gut brain is. It has trillions of cells, thousands of species, and they communicate with each other to form a supercomputer which takes some very important decisions. It decides how much fat, of what sort, and where to store in our bodies. People often say you get fat because you overeat, but that is an oversimplification. If our gut brain decides we need to store more fat, it sends out hormones that make us hungry, and then we overeat and get fat. Very different. At this moment, we don't really understand how the gut brain works, but we can see it in action. We can make fat people skinny and skinny people fat simply by changing their gut biota. That is an experimental fact. But we don't have to be a high-flying microbiologist to change our gut biota. We just need to understand a few basics. Look, a 3-year-old kid can ride a bicycle, yet the mechanics of how a bike works is really complicated. It is all to do with centrifugal couples and the angle and offset in the front forks. I learnt about centrifugal couples at university where I studied engineering, but a 3-year-old kid knows nothing about centrifugal couples. All she needs to know is to keep on pedalling and steer into the direction the bike is falling. They learn that even without knowing they have learnt it. It is the same with our gut biota. We just need to know a few basics. We can change our gut biota simply by knowing how we grow our food. Our gut biota originally comes from the soil, which, like our gut, contains trillions of cells of thousands of different species. They breed up in the soil, enter the plants by osmosis, which is how plants take water from the soil. We eat the plants, and the microbiota goes into our gut brain. Just like the kid on the bike, it has been happening for thousands of years without us even knowing. It's only when we dramatically changed the way we grow our food that our gut brain became an issue. The first and most important thing we need to know about microbes is that there are good bugs and bad bugs. The good bugs keep us fit and healthy, replace our body parts as they age and wear, and help our immune system to work and to provide us with energy. The bad bugs make us sick and can even kill us. They don't mean to, they just get it wrong. Generally, the good bugs need oxygen from the air, while the bad bugs breed in stagnant water. If you make the soil breathe, the good bugs outbreed the bad bugs, increasing the chance of us living a long and healthy life. Nature has evolved a very clever way of making the soil breathe, and it is called rain. In a heavy rain, water partially floods the soil, expelling stale air from the soil, and when it stops raining, the water in the soil drains away, sucking fresh air back into the soil. It invented that a few billion years ago, without the assistance of artificial intelligence. It has taken humans a long time to appreciate the importance of partial flood and drain, and it is the heart of the G-biota system. We simply partially flood the soil, then let the water drain away, but in the G-biota system we catch the water and reuse it. It is not actually pure water, it is full of nutrients and microbes. We call it soil blood, as it does exactly the same job that our blood does in the human body, circulates the good stuff. We like to eat several times a day. Actually, we have enough food stored in our bodies to last several days, but the microbes in our gut have a much faster cycle and need to be fed regularly. It is easy enough to grow gut-brain food, but how do we do that on a regular basis? In the G-biota system, we have 3 stages. In the first stage, we have the waste box, which we fill with food and other organic waste, where the decomposition cycle starts. As food waste is generally daily, this is really a waste collection box. It is full of labour or raw compost, which is not suitable for growing any plants. In the second box, the breeding cycle really starts, and the decomposition has progressed far enough to grow tough plants as a green manure. These plants are an important part of the process, as they exude sugars from their roots, which attracts and feeds the beneficial microbes. In the third or growing boxes, the decomposition has progressed far enough to grow the plants we eat, which will feed our gut brain. The plants actually grow in the mature soil in the upper part of the box, but we add mature compost to the base of the box. Throughout the entire cycle, we are flooding and draining all boxes, so stale air is expelled and fresh air is sucked into the soil. We do this as part of an ongoing cycle, which at first sounds a bit complicated, but is actually easy when you see it in action. It is easiest to explain going backwards, starting from the mature third stage growing box. Here we have a box where the plants are nearing the end of their life. They are beginning to get old and bitter, so I'm going to completely replace them, creating a fresh box. I don't do this with all boxes. For example, this box of spinach just keeps on growing, but I re-fertilise it with the soil blood from the breeding and waste boxes. I cut off all the plants and will put them in the blender to make green smoothies. The soil level has dropped. That happens all the time as the organic material decomposes. But I want to put mature compost from the breeding box, which may still be a bit fresh at the bottom. I can do this the regular way by digging out the soil, but this will damage the soil structure, so I'm going to use the flipping technique. In my younger days, when I had a house full of kids, I used to make pancakes with the kids watching to see if I had dropped any, which was fun. So now I am going to use flipping, but you can do it the regular way. You choose. I simply put the original lid back onto the box and flip it over. That's easy, the easy flip. I now have an upside down empty box, which I just lift off. If I'm using a swivel tube, I will clean out the drainage pipe and put a fillet in the base. Normally I use grass clippings because I have lots and they are free, but vermiculite is better but costs money. If I'm using a box with drainage holes, I will simply put a bit of dishcloth so the soil does not fall out. Now I go back to my second stage, breeding box, and we simply lift out about half a bucket or 5 litres of semi-matured compost and put this in the base. This contains many worms, so I do this by hand. If that puts you off, use a small trowel, not a spade, so you don't hurt the worms. I also add some extra nutrients like mature chicken manure, which I like because it contains extra biology, or blood and bone, which I like because it has a good spectrum of trace minerals, particularly zinc, which is one of the minerals we are short of. But the key point is we need to keep on topping up with nitrogen, which is an essential part of decomposition. Now comes the more difficult flip, putting the mature soil back into the box. It is an up and over flip, just like a pancake, which I get right 90% of the time. When I miss, I just put the soil back. It's fine. The flipping is really just a game. I break up the top layer and remove any big roots. Seriously wet out the soil, sprinkle seed on the surface and pat down, and then cover with either soil, grass clippings or vermiculite. I have a lot of birds in my block. I live near a nature reserve, which is nice as they have a free delivery service. No credit card needed of fresh manure. But they do eat my seeds, so I'll generally put a lid with holes in to keep them away until the seeds have germinated. Now I have to go back down the relay and take the label or young compost from the waste bin to fill the hole I've just made in the main breeding box. I just throw all my kitchen scraps straight into this box, so it is really pretty yucky. I want to avoid any waste which is too fresh, so I move the fresh waste away, go down to the bottom and scoop out a load to go into the main breeding box, which I will reseed with the tough green manure plants, which will grow in this labile compost. I then reload the waste bin. When I first start the waste bin, I load with inoculant, then minerals and manure or blood and bone. Inoculant, soil containing a broad spectrum of creatures from microbes and fungi, nematodes and worms, has a limited shelf life and needs to be mixed with organic waste as soon as it is delivered. But once mixed with the waste will only need replacing every 3 months. This will pass from the waste box through the breeding box and into the growing box. It is just like a relay race. I've tried to convince you that breeding gut brain food at home is really practical. If you decide this is what you want to do, then sign up at gbiota.com. I want a healthy gut to be available to as many people as possible. I measure success by how many legs I can avoid being amputated from diabetes, rather than the dim hopes of profits. But when I made it free, I was inundated with literally thousands of fakes, many trying to sell their pills, which are nowhere near as effective as growing fresh at home. Microbes have a short life and die quickly. So I've made my site a subscription site. It is only $5 per month, and you get a free period so you can cancel and pay nothing. But you do have to prove you are genuine. Sad times we live in. I'm a real person, not some mega corporation focused on profits, and support my followers by email and video calls to guide people over the inevitable bumps that happen in the real world. I look forward to chatting.